Like it.
All right. So here's what I know about you, John. I know that right before you started Pluginize, and is that how you say it?
Yep,
Pluginize?
it is.
You read it, but you never hear it. So then you want to make sure, is this the way you say it? Because it could have had a silent cue, and then you'd have been like, what?
Come on,
Um,
crazy? Yeah.
so I know that before you started Pluginize, um, that you had lots of different options of what you want to do,
hmm
what you could have done. You have a tremendous amount of skill, passion, and interest in all these different places. I hear you kind of like CrossFit too, um, and and so in all that, right? You decided, um, how about I go work on products over with the Web Dev Studio guys, right?
Yep.
And if you recall, we talked about products, right, and services when we
hmm
were both in Maui
We
a
did.
little more than a year ago, right? And I'm pretty sure at some point I let my bias articulate out, which was, oh, you can't do product companies or you can't do real products inside service companies.
Right.
It's just miserable, right? And we talked about the stuff you had done at Nine Seeds and kind of doing products and how long it took and the rewrites and all that stuff. And
hmm
so when you and I were hanging out in Vegas just a few months ago, right? And you're like, I'm doing products inside of Web Dev Studios, and of course my eyebrows like, hmm.
What?
Uh, so the first question, right? Every time I'm talking to anyone who's doing products inside a service company is, now, do you have a dedicated team or are you borrowing resources when the service side just gets slow?
Right. So you have absolutely hit the nail on the head. The very first conversations that I started having with Dre and Brad and Brian and Lisa, um, when we were kind of trying to, like, we've all liked each other for a really long time, and we've known that there was likely going to be a time sometime in the future when we were all going to work together. That was almost a given. Okay. But what ended up happening was as we started having these conversations at the beginning of the year, what one of the things, again, like I was saying before, was I didn't want to just go get a job. I could have been a developer anywhere. I could have been a project manager anywhere. I could have done a lot of these things anywhere. But what I really wanted was I kind of wanted a new opportunity to be part of something that had potential to go gangbusters and do something outside of what people were normally doing. So when I started talking with them, the idea of products came up because they've been around a long time.
Yep.
excuse excuse me. They've been around a long time. They've done a lot of client work. They do a lot of when they do a lot of their client work, they write up their contracts in a way that that kind of gives them access to a lot of that code in the GPL manner. So they really had a lot of the footwork already done for what I would have wanted. And so the very first question and very first requirement that I had for them was, guys, listen, I've played this game before. I don't have any interest in coming to WebDevStudios if what is going to happen is every time I say, okay, we're ready to start on the next project, and they say, okay, well, that developer, he's tied up on this thing for some big client and you can have him in 3 weeks. That does not work for me. The only way that this works for me is if from day one, you provide me with a full-time developer and a part-time support person. Those are the two things that I need. I don't feel like I need a full-time designer, so I would be totally fine if I have a design request or a design requirement. I would be fine to act as if my department was a quote unquote client of
Right.
WebDevStudios and say, hey guys, I need this thing. Can you put it on your schedule and get it to me? And um, and they agreed. They basically agreed from the outset. They're like, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to buy in 100%, and that's the only way that this is going to work. So I literally work in almost an autonomous fashion, to where I work for WebDevStudios, but really I am my own boss, and
Yep.
I answer to a couple of people, sure, of course, so that it would be stupid if I didn't. But at the same time, they literally have no control. The project managers over there have no control over my developers. They are literally my developers.
All right, so let's get into that for a sec, because those developers likely they came out of the web dev team, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't like you went and hired some new people, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you're working, if your day-to-day work has been, for the longest time, it's been project work, right? You're working for a
Mhm.
client. You learn. I'm gonna make some statements here that service people are gonna hate later, but they're not on the call right now. You cut some corners, right? You have
Mhm.
to, you're like, look, in the perfect world, I could spend so much time bulletproofing this, or in the
Yeah.
perfect world, but or you even know, like, I don't have to even do that part because they don't have staff that are going to touch that part, so we don't have to touch it, right? We just walk away
Right.
from it, leave it over here. So you don't put some of the same guards or protection against certain areas because you're
Sure.
like, these clients are going to touch it. When you move that kind of developer into product work, right? Everything changes, because now you're like, this product is going to be touched by tons of people that I don't know. We have
Yep.
no context for how they use it, which means I need to do things like polish the interface and
Yeah.
protect people from themselves. And I need to do documentation, right?
Yep.
None of those words, polish, protect, or documentation, are the words that developers wake up in the morning going, I can't
I
wait.
can't wait to get on
Can't
to
wait to
that.
get on.
Yeah.
So has there been any challenge as you've started transitioning people from project work to product work in that kind of shift towards what I call custodial services, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's
So I will tell you that I count myself to be extremely lucky in that Ryan Fugate, the my main developer for my team, he is a plugin developer. He the guy is solid. He knows the ins and the outs. One thing that I'm very good at, by the way, is I am a QA specialist. I can break stuff in ways that people didn't know were possible. And so between the two of us working together in that kind of a dynamic, that has actually worked out really well.
awesome.
Now, those two things alone do not solve everything
Right.
that you have asked about. And here is where I count myself. So I already counted myself lucky
You're
by
about to offer
getting
me a job to do documentation, isn't it? That's what you're about
right.
to
So Chris, what I was
so
about to say was the whole reason for the call.
$5 an hour.
Exactly. I don't know if you know the name Michael Beckwith.
Okay. I think
But
so.
Michael Beckwith is what I would consider to be a documentation specialist. The guy, he is he loves it. He lives it and he breathes it. He enjoys the coding side. He does. He wants to break in and do more coding. And what has been a fantastic opportunity here is we have had the opportunity to where when Ryan writes something, what we now do is I then hand it over to Michael. Michael goes through it from top to bottom. He handles all of the things like the API gen for doing all of the documentation, for documenting all of the functions, all of those pieces. So when we launch a product, you can go to codex.pluginize.com and you can now get access to all of the different functions that are built into every single one of those plugins. That happens literally day one.
Now
So
that's okay. I want to pause you right there.
yeah,
So that definitely is the articulation of the features of the functionality of the code that's sitting
sure.
inside the plugin. But there's also a different kind of documentation, right? The tutorials, the
Yep.
how-tos, the which things to do. Is Michael also working on that?
Michael works on some of that, and so does Ryan.
Ryan works
Ryan,
on some of that.
Ryan actually really enjoys the aspect of writing from the technical standpoint. So, so this is where it gets kind of interesting, and I really kind of sometimes have to rein people in because so when Ryan is writing a plugin, his idea is he wants to make it as extensible as possible for developers, which is great. Which means like I think one of our plugins, when we like right after we did version 1.0, when we went to go to version 1.1, he included something to the effect, and I'm not even exaggerating, 60 hooks. And I'm like, that's awesome. It's amazing. The problem is the people who are going to be using our plugins are probably not that set, and that's okay. I don't mind. I would much rather like overhook and over filter and have somebody come back once in a blue moon going, hey, it sure would be neat if something existed in this particular spot. But so where Ryan does that side of things and builds those pieces out, I actually have access to a what I call my writing adult. I'm really good at writing what I call the first draft of something. I know what I know the tone, and I know the basics of what the point is I'm trying to get across. But what I then need is I need an adult to come in and actually look at it and turn that into something that somebody who reads English might use, and I have access to that. So
awesome.
So we're actually kind of attacking this from two completely separate spots. I already told you about codex.pluginize.com, but we also have docs.pluginize.com. And so docs is more along the lines of the tutorials and so I like to say that our target market with Pluginize is really those people that I call website builders. They're not necessarily developers, but they know how to go and find a plugin, or maybe find 2 or 3 plugins, mash those things together, and do something above and beyond what the average bear is going to be able to go and do. And so what my goal is to generate enough of these what I like to call kind of like single function plugins, to where I don't want to build one plugin that has everything under the sun, because you and I both know those suck. You end up using 1/10 of them, and they become complete resource hogs. What I would much rather do is sell you 5 little plugins that each do one specific thing, but do that thing really freaking well. And then now you've got kind of a streamlined process for getting exactly what you need for your client out the door. So that's really where we're going. So so between Ryan writing things that will allow developers to extend stuff way further than we will probably do on our own, and then having on the other side having us write those tutorials to be like, hey, need a really easy way to display some CPT data? Here it is. Here's a quick little walkthrough video, and here's an example of what that short code looks like. You're done. Go to town. So that's where I'm at.
Let's dig into the other challenge. When we were in Vegas a year ago, you use a line that is one of my all-time favorites, which is "Not my circus, not my monkeys," right? And that's classic in the service world, right? Where you just, at some point when the client says, but I want it to slide left, and I want it to pop, and I want it to be blue, you're like, hey, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
In product work, when you bring a bunch of software guys together to build the product, everybody is like, this is my circus and these are my monkeys. And of course we have no monkeys. We're building perfect software. And then the product's done and you have to market it.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's not my circus, not my monkeys. You're like, look, I coded the thing, right? That's my job. I code it like you do. Somebody better go figure this out. So who's doing marketing strategy and marketing work, and who's in charge of owning marketing for Pluginize?
So it's a little bit of a combination. Dre Armada is the chief marketing officer for WebDevStudios, and so he is kind of handling the kind of top level. A lot of the plugins, like I would definitely say that he's not kind of getting into the nitty gritty and figuring out what every single cool feature is on every plugin that we build, and I don't expect him to. And so those parts of things are kind of are relying on my team. So that'd be me, Michael, and Ryan at this point, where we're the ones who are kind of when and it's kind of weird that sometimes when you're writing a plugin, one of the plugins that we actually just released, it's called Buddy Pages. It is, and I'm not even, I can't tell you how strong of a plugin this thing is, how valuable this thing is. The problem is, it's really hard to explain why it's so valuable to you. I could show it to you and you look at it and you go, oh, that's pretty neat. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Without that plugin, if you were to go and try and do this on your own, well, good luck for the next 2 weeks while you go and try to figure this thing out, because it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've actually taken that and we've turned it into an absolute super simplistic thing. So I'm a huge fan of walkthrough videos. I haven't done one yet for Buddy Pages. It's on my list. I've had a bit of a crazy week, but yeah. So that's really where I kind of come into play. I've always been a really big fan of showing walkthrough videos because I think they are, you know how it is. Different people learn different ways. Some people, you have to write them a book. Some people, you need to write them 2 sentences and they just get it. Some people, you need to just show them a walkthrough video that says, look, here's exactly how you do it. Here's the 3 clicks that you have to get to, and away you go. So I'm really trying to get to a point where we're generating enough content for our blog that we're kind of helping reach all of those different types of people. Depending on how you learn best, I want to have a piece of marketing material that serves that purpose for you.
Yep. Makes sense. Cool. So let's talk a little about the plugins that you've actually rolled out, right?
Sure.
So you have one that is for custom post types, right? The UI and everything related to it.
Right.
And then you have another one that is Buddy Press related that we just referenced. Are those the 2, or do you have more than that?
So when I very first started, and yeah, you want to talk about a trial by fire. We have a plugin by the name of Custom Post Types UI.
Yeah.
And that plugin has been downloaded a little over 1.5 million times and currently has an install base of roughly 300,000 people. And when I first came on board, what I did was I spent the first week doing nothing but just going through all of the existing plugins and just trying to get an idea of what was good, what was bad, what needed to be thrown in the garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the first week is always going to be like. And because CPTUI has such a huge user base, it obviously made sense for us to do something with that. And so when I came on board, they were actually already in the process of getting ready to do another major launch. I think it was 1.34 or 1.4, something like that. I don't remember the exact number. But so what ended up happening was they're like, well, let's give this to John. And so I immediately went from, I've used CPTUI in the past. I've used it on projects for several years now. So I was definitely familiar with it. And what I knew about it as a user was the fact that it was very strong, has a lot of cool functionality, but really had an absolutely not so great user interface. And so I really wanted to start, my process was, and it's an iterative process. I'm not done. Like, we are still, this is going to take a couple of more versions before we get there. But the version that was out there was confusing, not very good. Really wanted to kind of clean that up. So I basically hopped into Balsamic, and I just started making mock-ups of, okay, here's what the next version is going to be like. And I took all of that, we revamped the entire look, we added a couple of other additional kind of like bells and whistles that were needed, we cleaned up some bugs. And so my big first launch as part of WebDevStudios was the release of a plugin that had 300,000 active installs. So it's like, hey, don't screw it up.
Right.
And I was very excited. We tested the living snot out of it, and when we launched it, within the first week, we literally had one support request. And that support request turned out to be something completely unrelated to our plugin, which, this is an interesting thing, and I don't know if you know this, but in the WordPress repo, if you've got a plugin that is installed on roughly 300,000 installs, people think that your plugin is running everything. So we get support requests for everything under the sun, and that's exactly what happened in this case. So that was really my very first kind of touch of anything having to do with WebDevStudios, and I was very excited with how well it went. And a large portion of that, the credit, doesn't go to me, but really should have gone to Michael Beckwith, because he's the one who had been shepherding that plugin for quite a while. All I did was I kind of stepped in and said, I see where you're going with this. Let's kind of clean it up and make it a little sexier, and it worked really well. So after that, within a few weeks, we wrapped up the first version of Pluginize.com, and at the same time that we launched Pluginize.com, we launched a paid add-on called Custom Post Types UI Extended. And what this was is, if you're familiar with what custom post type UI is, it's a very easy way for you to create custom post types. The piece that it doesn't allow you to do is display data. It's really more for being able to kind of create the buckets to store data. So for me, it almost felt like an absolute slam dunk. Hey, we need a display layer. So we went through the process, we kind of talked through it a little bit, and again, this is another one of those things where it's going to be an iterative process. We released version 1 with very few templates that were available, and really quickly right after that. So the nice part about the extended plugin is that it doesn't just work with custom post types that you create using CPT UI. So it'll literally work with any custom post type that you have on your entire system. So if you've got WooCommerce installed, you've got a CPT for products. If you've got EDD installed, you've got a CPT for downloads. Well, great. What we did is we immediately went, well, hold on just a second here. Let's be smart about this. We went and created specific custom templates for EDD and for WooCommerce. And so now we made it to be a very easy way for you to go and, let's say that you wanted to do a blog post where you're like, hey, here was this month's top 5 selling products. You click a couple of buttons through a quick modal. You drop in, the shortcode gets added, and bang zoom, in 30 seconds you now have, not only do you have a nice display of how it works, but we're also using WooCommerce's APIs and we're using EDD's APIs. So not only is it a display, but you've also got right there the add to cart options, and you've got the extra filter options for for the variables and things like that. So we really wanted to make it very, very simple for people to kind of do those advanced kind of things, even if you aren't a developer. And now you can do that. And the fun part about all of this is, like I said, Ryan kind of went completely nuts and added 60 hooks and filters in there to where you could literally build a custom template for any custom post type that you have, store it in a specific way, which he's got a nice little tutorial on how to do it, and then you can hand that off to your client, and your client can now do this from now till the end of time without ever writing a line of code. Like, it's so simple. It's like mind-boggling.
Yep.
So it's been a pretty exciting. That was the first actual paid plugin that we did. Right after that, we did a free plugin called Buddy Extender, which is there's a handful of what we call behind the scenes bits of functionality that BuddyPress has that are kind of hidden in the code, that if you don't know about them, you would never know to go and be able to turn those on and off. We gave them an interface.
Yep.
Very simple, super simple. And so that was Buddy Extender. And then now we actually just launched this another product, which is actually a paid product called Buddy Pages, which is I still need to do a couple of walkthrough videos, but it's a super ridiculous, powerful piece of software that makes it very simple for you as an admin or for your users to go and add pages to either your groups or to your user profiles and things like that. Gives it a nice little WYSIWYG editor, something that without this plugin would be hours upon hours of work. With this plugin, it's like literally 5 clicks and you're done. So that's kind of what we've worked on to this point. We've got, I really think that there's a lot that can still be done around BuddyPress. And so we're really excited about the BuddyPress stuff. So I think we'll probably be focusing on some additional BuddyPress related things.
Are you seeing a lot of BuddyPress requests from the market, or are you seeing a lot of BuddyPress projects from the service side?
So definitely from the service side.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of those, and not only that, we've also, as a company, we've also worked on a lot of BuddyPress related things.
Yep.
So it's really easy to kind of see where these gaps show up.
Yep.
And some of the times, you know how it is. It's like, people don't know that they're missing something until you actually show them that they're missing something.
Yep.
So there's pieces of that as well. And so we're going to, I think we're going to just kind of continue to put together some, real small, again, I'm not trying to build, some massive plugin with 1,000 features, but I'd much rather build 1,000 plugins with 5 features each. So that's really the angle that I'm shooting for.
Now, a brief walkthrough at the Pluginize site.
Yeah.
Right? When you click on the products link at the top, and I see there's like 20 to 30 products, right? There's 20 or 30 listed. Some of them are free. They're kind of all over the place. Are these 2 questions, right? So on the one hand, there's the I noticed there's they're kind of spread out all over the place. And so is there, are these the old ones that are just natural byproducts of the work the service company has done? And are you going to slowly start focusing and narrowing and defining what you're in? And the second question is, I notice app pressers there.
Yeah.
And is that a shift at all in marketing to go from the app presser site to Pluginize site, or is it just a kind of a additional channel to sell through, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so you're kind of hitting the nail on the head here with the I am kind of walking into and taking over for a lot of things that kind of already existed. So you will notice that we have 2 plugins that are WooCommerce specific plugins. And if you click to purchase those, they are actually going to take you directly to the WooCommerce website, and you're going to purchase them over there.
Right.
We got a couple of those with EDD as well. I just haven't had enough time at this particular point. It's just I haven't been there long enough to where I haven't had the opportunity to bring those under my wing, vet them, figure out where they're at, get them up to speed, and then make an educated decision on whether or not that should now be moved over and be sold 100% on the Pluginize side. Should it stay on the Woo side? The process for those couple of plugins isn't necessarily broken at this point.
Right.
So I've got other things to battle. So they're just a little bit lower on the list.
That makes sense.
So eventually I have a feeling more and more and more of the products will kind of move under my wing and will stay on the Pluginize site, which I think becomes a better user experience for because I think it can be confusing if somebody comes to the site and they go, oh hey, I really like this plugin, I want to buy it, I want to click to buy it, wait a second, why am I over here now?
That's right.
So I find that part confusing, and I understand that other folks could too. So my initial goal is over probably, let's say, the next 6 to 8 months, I'm going to be doing a lot of that cleanup. So that is definitely on my radar. But talking about AppPresser specifically, so AppPresser is kind of a joint deal between Scott and WebDevStudios, and they kind of work on that project together. And AppPresser has its own marketplace where it's got all of its own pieces and parts and yada yada yada. All of those existed inside, all of those pieces and parts existed inside of the WebDevStudios shop when I took it over. So when we moved everything over to Pluginize, I kind of just part and parcel just brought that all over as well. Again, I think Scott's doing such a great job with AppPresser that it's allowing me to kind of stay focused on other aspects of the business, and I don't need to dive into it so heavily at this point, which is great. Thank goodness, because I don't know exactly which hours of the day I would pull apart to go and go after those. But because it's kind of already a working model, I haven't felt the need to kind of shake the boat too much just yet. Will something happen? Will things change? More than likely. I have a feeling some of that stuff we might end up maybe we move the AppPresser stuff back over to WebDevStudios, have that stuff live there, and then that be kind of the combination between WebDev and AppPresser, and not necessarily be part of Pluginize, because at this point my team isn't really touching those plugins. So if somebody were to ask for a support request from that right this minute,
right,
all I would really be doing is shoveling them off somewhere else. So yeah, there's aspects to that just kind of need some cleanup, and it's just going to take some time. That's all.
Yep, makes sense. All right, so let's dig into something that I think we both know and love, which is blogging.
I love blogging.
So for years, the web dev blog, I think I can say this and still be friends with all of them, right? I should let you swallow. For years, it was nothing more than new hire announcements and which conferences we're going to be at, right? Mm-hmm. And then over the course of, I don't know, the last year or two, 18 months, it has gone gangbusters, right?
Yeah.
Great articles, written all the time, consistent, lots of good tone and voice, very helpful, clear sense of a target audience. They took it on point, right?
They get it.
They do.
They get it. Yeah.
And I know you get it, right? And so I look at the blog over at AppPresser, I look at the blog over at Pluginize, and I go, okay, still early days.
Yeah.
So how big a deal how big a deal is the blog at Pluginize for you?
Um, Initially, right this moment, I would say, it's brand new. I mean, we're talking,
Yeah.
what are we talking, 2 months at this point? So right now you're still getting a lot of product announcement, and what I'm really trying to start getting into there is a lot more tutorial-based stuff.
Yeah.
That's really kind of the what I think is going to be the bread and butter for helping to market the products that we've got, which is the tutorial side of, in a perfect world, what I would be doing left, right, and center is I would be doing client profiles.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a cool website that took one of our plugins and did something cool. So, hey, if somebody's listening to this and you've used one of our plugins and you've done something cool, I want to know about it, and I need to make that reach out, and I need to make that a known thing, because the Liz, the lady who does a lot of the cultivating of the content for WebDevStudios, she is absolutely fantastic at kind of being the adult in the room, where we have a months and months and months long list of content requests that everybody in the company basically gets assigned. So everybody has something assigned to them that they're going to then go and write about. And some of that is technical based, some of that is new functionality, some of it's even personal stuff. I think there's going to be a really cool article coming out in the next week or two that I know that Liz has been working on, that I'm really excited to see the end result for. And like you said, that type of stuff becomes so much more shareable than, hey, look at us, new hire, here's where we're going to be, come see us. Like, that stuff, it's important to have that stuff, absolutely, but it's only important to have that stuff if you have other pieces around it that make it so that stuff is not the primary focus. So for me, I would say I would very much like to model Pluginize's blog very much after what WebDevStudios is doing, and lots of tutorials, lots of personal interest stuff, lots of, definitely I want to go after customer-based related things, and say, look, here's something else cool that we were able to do with this, and you can too. So that's definitely so on the AppPresser side, Scott's been kind of writing a little bit more longer form pieces about like deep technical aspects of different technologies. So he's kind of been doing that a bit lately as well. I don't know the frequency at which he's going to continue to do that. I know that for us, I want our frequency to be, at least weekly, if not twice a week, and that would kind of be a nice, comfortable feel for us over here at Pluginize. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like, if you were to look back 2 years ago, the WebDev blog is probably not something that too many people were excited about, but now, like, we talk about it on our Scrum on Fridays. Hey, we got to mention in Torque, we got to mention on post status, we got to mention from this and from that. Like, people are actually standing up and noticing what's going on, and it's exciting. I find it exciting, and something that I'm really glad to be a part of, for sure.
Yep. That's awesome. So, I think the last core question you hit on, this notion of the builder, right? And I find that most WordPress people have a real hard time writing for that person, right?
It's tough, yeah,
because that, like, they don't all hang out somewhere, right? So it's hard to find, like, okay, where are they hanging out and how do I target that audience and what do I write about for them? Because yeah, they're the builder, but they're the builder that's mashing things up, which means your deep technical articles are not necessarily going to win them over.
They missed the mark. Yeah.
Because they're not even looking for it. And your pure sales pitch, is just a tiny bit too slick for them. And so, and yet they're there, but they don't hang out in a clump, right? There's no easy place to just go at some point, right? We should spin up a Facebook group that is just these people and be very rigorous about who gets in. But once they're there, then you're like, sweet, I just drop an article in here and I have you all in one place, right? So as you think about your marketing and your efforts to find these people, to write for these people, to target these people, what's the strategy for connecting with them and for bringing them kind of to Pluginize?
I really think a lot of it has to do with those tutorials and the what's possible with when I talk about writing a tutorial, I'm not necessarily just talking about writing a tutorial that has to do with our plugins. Like, that doesn't have to be the answer. Like, I saw, Mika just very recently, she wrote an amazing blog post about some stuff that she was doing, and she ended up talking about custom post types, CMB2, which is a product of ours. So obviously we stood up and took notice. But regardless, if you were to take us that personal touch out of it, like, that article was so well written and such a good example of what could be done with a couple of different plugins.
Yep.
Like, people are definitely going to stand up and take notice. They're going to go, oh, wait a second, that's really similar to something that I'm trying to do. Maybe I'm not trying to do it with bowling balls, but I'm trying to do it with golf clubs, but yet it's the same exact thing. I can really see how this and that fit together. Yep. And so those are really the types of things that excite me and that I want to get us to the point of writing. Even if it's not our plugins, that's okay. I'm totally fine with that.
Yep.
If you become the authoritative voice on how to go about doing different things, what ends up happening is people then start coming into your front yard to have conversations.
Yep.
And once that happens, you kind of become that authoritative voice. So at that point, when you do release a plugin that kind of hits on, let's say, 50% of those people, they're already going to be there. They're going to have signed up for your newsletter. They're going to have signed up for your RSS feed. And you're going to drop this thing that's going to have a walkthrough video that says, hey, let me show you something cool on how we did this. We did this, and this together with these 3 plugins. By the way, this particular plugin is a paid plugin. It's going to cost you a couple bucks. But for that couple of bucks, I'm going to save you 3 days of work.
Yep.
They're going to buy it without even thinking about it. So it's a long game. I mean, this is something that's going to happen.
I hear this is what you're supposed to do. I'm going to work on that.
You should really start writing a blog or something.
I should start writing about WordPress.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, congratulations on everything going on at Pluginize. That is awesome.
Thanks, man.
I am very happy to see what's going on, and I'm excited to see what comes next. So keep up the good work and say hello to all my friends over there.
I definitely will.
And we'll connect soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Take care.
All right.